Good morning and happy Mother's Day. My name is Jonathan Jeyachandran, and I've been a part of Glenmar for as long as I remember. I remember being a part of the Christmas play and the string fling ensemble when I was little. Now I participate in the youth group and go on mission trips. My first mission trip was to Hurley, Virginia. On my most recent one, I went to Manaus, Brazil last summer. I am now a senior at Loyola Bakefield and will graduate in 4 weeks on June 7th. In the fall, I will be attending the University of Michigan, where I'll be studying engineering. Over the past few weeks, Pastor Matt has been talking about taking care of what God has given us. I think that one of the most important gifts from God is our relationships, both with God and with other people. Today, I'll be talking about taking care of the relationships God has put into our lives. God knows that this isn't easy. The Bible is full of things that stand in the way of our relationships, from Genesis all the way through the New Testament. The list of these obstacles goes on and on: lying, jealousy, selfishness, laziness, bitterness, ignorance, etc. Of all these issues, I think the most common and the hardest to overcome obstacles are judgment, fear, and anger. These barriers are part of human nature and are quite evident in our society. Beginning late last summer, our nation has seen judgment, fear, and anger appear in Ferguson, Missouri. Now these same issues rear their ugly heads in our state, in our city of Baltimore. The causes of these issues are many and varied. A wide range of issues, such as widespread poverty, and the arrests and deaths of individuals in the community, affect the situation. People disagree on what exactly the causes are, but the result is evident. Through the coverage of these situations, all we have seen is judgment, fear, and anger. These barriers not only block our relationships with others, but they also prevent us from connecting with God. When talking about judgment, the word prejudice gets thrown around a lot. Prejudice is judging something without an experience. It's literally prejudging something. These judgments cloud our view of others. As we heard earlier from Matthew, Jesus points out that just as we judge others, others judge us. Judgment turns people into statistics. Our expectations based on statistics are never the same as our actual experiences. I went to Brazil with a few expectations. I thought the Brazilians wouldn't really want to talk to us. I thought that our entire interaction with the Brazilians would be through soccer. I could not have been more wrong. They really liked to talk to us. The kids would crack jokes, which had to be translated, trying to get us to laugh. They would just sit with us and ask us questions. By thinking the Brazilians wouldn't really want to get to know us, I didn't really try to get to know them at first. But by the end of my time in Brazil, I had made some friends that I wanted to bring back to America. The same thing is true about our relationships with God. Often we base our judgment of God on the people in the world who claim to represent Him. When they fail to be good people, we judge God to be bad. As a result, our relationship with God suffers. This happens whenever the clergy are accused of anything. For example, many Christians turned away from the church after priests were accused of child abuse. The same thing happened when the lapses of judgment of the leaders of some megachurches were revealed. Fear is a side effect of prejudice. Fear also prevents us from having good relationships. We as humans fear the unknown and the different. Fear the loss of our security and of our image. We fear that others might hurt us or let us down. Fear is often based on ignorance. When we are scared, we try to protect ourselves. Because of this, we can't connect with others. Fear causes us to avoid people and put on masks. We avoid those we think are dangerous, and we don't reveal our vulnerabilities to others. As a result, they don't truly know us. Our fear of the unknown affects the foods we eat. Just this last week, I went out to dinner with some friends. We were served some salad with an unknown dressing. The fear of this unknown prevented one of my friends from even trying the salad. More importantly, fear prevents us from reaching out to others. People are scared of reaching out to those living in Sandtown, Baltimore. On the surface, these people are different than the people who live in Howard County. They are of a different socioeconomic background, of a different race, of a different environment. Where they live, we might consider to be dangerous. They don't have places for recreation, and as a result, many turn to drugs. Furthermore, people are afraid that they can't make a difference. All these fears block relationships from forming. The opposite of fear is faith. Faith is trusting others to come through. Faith enables us to connect with others fully and accomplish great things. Jesus points to the power of faith in Matthew. He says, "Faith the size of a mustard seed can move mountains." We need this faith in our relationship with God. We're often afraid that God won't be there when we need Him. We're scared that we can't rely on Him to come through on His promises. God is aware of our fears. This is why He assures of His presence by saying, "Don't be afraid, and I am with you." Joshua shared our fears. This is why when Moses died, God tells him, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you." With God's help, we can accomplish many things. In addition to fear and prejudice, anger stands between us and others. In the reading we heard earlier, Paul instructs us to put away from us our anger. Anger makes it easier to dehumanize people. When we are angry at people, they are no longer human. Rather, they're just objects, irritants. They are a part of the problem. Sometimes they even become the problem. This barrier is especially evident at the MVA. The MVA is full of problems. The lines wrap around the building and crawl at snail-like paces. Papers are acquired and forgotten. Piles of forms need to be filled. As a result, people become frustrated while at the MVA. At my young age, I've only been to the MVA 3 times. However, I had to endure the idle time spent in the MVA's lines when I went to take my driver's license test. Even though I had an appointment scheduled to take the test, I still had to wait for what felt like hours before I could take it. Often, this frustration leads to anger. Irate people snap at the NVA staff rudely. They treat the staff as broken machines, responsible for the issues they are dealing with. Recent events in Baltimore have also been influenced by anger. People took to the streets to protest the recent death of Freddie Gray. At first, the protests were peaceful. However, later, anger swelled in some. Eventually, it could not be contained, and violence ensued. Rocks were thrown at police officers, car windows were smashed, businesses were burned. In their anger, the rioters acted violently. If they had considered the cops and the owners of the cars and the businesses as humans just like them, this would not have happened. The problem became associated with these things, and so the human cost was not considered. The poor living in inner city Baltimore have also been treated as something not human. The police and the government in the area have acted through judgment and treated them as statistics, people who are more likely to commit crimes. Anger often can be found in our relationship with God. We can be quick to place the blame on God, refusing to accept any responsibility. When things don't go the way that they're supposed to, we blame Him. In any disaster, people get angry with God, asking questions like, "Why didn't God stop this?" This happened after 9/11, Hurricane Katrina, and the tsunami in Japan, and the earthquake in Nepal. When loved ones die or suffer, we become angry with God, eroding our relationship with Him. The investment of time is one way to overcome these obstacles. Relationships are not strong without time spent together, hanging out and doing things. Spending time with others makes it hard to dismiss them, treat them as statistics or problems. Rather, it causes a sense of equality. I experienced this when I began high school. Only 2 other kids from my middle school decided Loyola for high school. At the beginning of the school year, I only knew these other 2 kids. I didn't have many friends initially, but I was still reluctant to become friends with other kids. My prejudices of them prevented me from talking to them, but eventually I was forced to, through group projects and having classes together. As a result, I'm good friends now with some kids that I wouldn't have had a relationship without having to spend time together. In the same way, spending God through prayer and reading the Bible strengthens our relationship with Him. Certainly, attending worship is one way to spend time with God. God understands our struggle to overcome these obstacles. God sees these flaws. He accepts us the way that we are, but He loves us too much to let us stay this way. God sent Jesus to help us overcome all these things. One of the greatest examples of this is the Apostle Paul. Paul is remembered today as one of the greatest early Christians, someone who was fearless in danger and who spread the gospel throughout the Roman Empire. But he wasn't always like this. Before his transformation, he judged people. Saul hated the Christians. He didn't really know them. He treated them as statistics and problems threatening the Jewish faith. As a result, Saul persecuted them, treated them as something subhuman. But then he found God on the road to Damascus. Saul, the persecutor, became Paul the apostle. This dramatic transformation led to him writing a large portion of the New Testament and becoming one of the strongest advocates for having faith in Jesus Christ. God accepts us as screwed up people, but He loves us too much for us to continue on like that. He is at work in our lives to help us get rid of judgment, fear, and anger. That is God's message. We all want good relationships, but we all have obstacles in the way of this. God helps us to overcome these obstacles. We should take opportunities to strengthen our relationships. We should avoid selfishness and anger and control our egos. This might mean taking a big risk. You might decide to spend 2 weeks on a mission trip to a foreign country. You might decide to help people clean up the streets just a few hours after rioters had razed local buildings. But it might also be something small, like donating a few toothbrushes and some toothpaste to people who can't get it. We need to show love and gratitude to God as well. We do this by supporting the church through our presence, prayers, gifts, witnesses, and service. You're all present in church right now, so you're supporting the church through your presence. The ministers in the church, not just the pastors, but everyone, needs some support. Are you praying for them? God has blessed us financially. Are you giving to the church? Are you involved in any of the various ministries here? These are all ways to support the church and respond in love and gratitude to God's involvement in our lives. I'm just like everyone else. I struggle with judgment, fear, and anger. But I recognize God in my life, and I want to respond. It's my hope that you do too. Amen.